Hey, we have 27x cubed minus 3y cubed. And before we do anything, there's something small we have to be able to catch, which is that we have a 27 and a 3. They're both divisible by 3, so before I do anything, I can factor out a 3. So let's see what that'll leave me with inside. That'll leave me with, well, 3 goes into 27, 9 times, I'll still have my x cubed. And then dividing out the 3 means I'll just have the minus y cubed. Now, you may be worried about that I've got cubes left to deal with inside the parentheses, and that is always something you have to think about. However, 9 is not a cube. Had this been a 27 when we were still done, we would be all set and we'd want to be doing cubes and soap. But 9 is not a cube, so I can't do cubes here. So I'm all done. I did everything I could do, which is I could factor out a 3, and that's it. Sometimes it's just that simple. Let's take a look at L. So in L, we have x squared plus 3x minus 10. Again, notice that there's no common factor between all 3 terms, so I'm doing 3 terms means I'm doing AC method. I need an A, a B, and a C, or A is a hidden 1. So I've got AC, which is A times C will be a 1 times A, be careful, negative 10, which will give me a negative 10. And then I'll need 2 factors of negative 10 that add up to the middle term, which is a positive 3. So remember, to get a negative 10, I need 1 to be negative and 1 to be positive, but I want them to add up to a positive 3. And the only way to do that is if I get a negative 2 and a positive 5. So what this will let me do is break up my 3x in the middle using the negative 2 and the 5. So let's see how that's going to work. So breaking up the 3x into a negative 2x and a positive 5x. Now remember how this works. The first term, the x squared stays the same, and the last term, the negative 10 stays the same. Then I'm just doing grouping now that I have 4 terms. So grouping the first 2, what do they have in common? They have a common factor of x, which will leave me with an x minus 2. Now with the second 2, I'm going to pull down my plus sign. What do they have in common? They're both divisible by 5. So factoring out of 5 will leave me with x minus, well, 5 will go into 10 2 times. Notice I am all set to go because I have my matching x minus 2, parentheses and all, so I can factor out that matching x minus 2, parentheses and all. So let's see, let's pull out the matching x minus 2. And then the leftovers will go inside of their own set of parentheses, which is an x plus 5. So my final answer for this one is an x minus 2 times an x plus 5. Last problem here. In this last problem, we have a 5x cubed plus a 5x squared y minus xy squared minus y cubed. We have 4 terms. Nothing's in common between all 4 terms, so I need to group the first 2 and group the second 2. So the question becomes, what do the first 2 have in common? Well, notice that they both are divisible by 5. And notice this one has 3 x's and this one has 2, so they both have at least 2 x's as well, so I can pull out a 5 and an x squared. So if I pull out a 5 and 2 x's, that still leaves me with an x in the first piece. Pulling out a 5 and 2 x's from the second piece still leaves me with a y. Notice I had a plus sign in the middle. Now looking at the last 2, remember the first term has a minus sign here, so I do have to pull out a GCF with a negative sign. Also, we have 2 y's, then 3 y's, so I can pull out at least 2 y's from both and the negative sign. On the first piece, pulling out the negative sign and the y squared just leaves me with the x. Pulling out the negative sign means that on the last piece, that the negative will turn into a positive. Pulling out 2 of the y's, though, will still mean I've got 1 left over. But what should we notice then is that I do have a matching x plus y. As a reminder, if it doesn't match, you did something wrong. So let me pull out my matching x plus y, parentheses and all. Then my leftovers will go inside of another set of parentheses. Well, what's left over is my 5x squared and my minus y squared. Now, notice, if you are thinking about squares with that last piece, with our leftovers, you should. However, huge problem. This 5 is not a square. Had that been a 25, absolutely, you would have a difference of 2 squares, but you do not. That is a 5, not a 25. So you can't do anything with that, and we are done. This is our final answer, and it's completely factored. An x plus y times a 5x squared minus y squared.